we start off here with one of the mini tactics is what a friend we have in Jesus. Which
And so actually he gives us 5 of these, right?
5 total, right? So he talks about he says here he's developed a handful of modest maneuvers that may help you, like they've helped me in conversation with others. And he calls them mini tactics, right? Because the concepts are relatively uncomplicated and be put into play easily when needed. So it's, again, and throughout this, we haven't really found a if A, then B, how to respond. You kind of just, this is how a conversation goes. And so these ones are not so much, like Columbo tactics where they're kind of the main crux. So he has what a friend we have in Jesus, which will be the first one, sticks and stones, moving towards the objection, watch your language, always good, and the power of so. Yeah. So the first one here is kind of this general principle of a tactic, and it's to pit the challenger, whoever you're talking to, against Jesus whenever you can.
Wow.
Kind of makes
so
sense.
They go up against Jesus.
You know?
My goodness.
Who wants to do that?
Yeah.
So he says, kind of step aside whenever you can and let Jesus shoulder the responsibility for his own claims. It really helps balance the scales. And so I kind of think about this as when people critique presuppositional apologetics, say, oh, you're starting with the conclusion. Well, my conclusion makes me, present the argument of the gospel and that Christianity is true. And without the biblical Christian God, I can't know anything. I know things. Therefore, that's my ultimate standard.
Right.
So this is just an offshoot of that and saying, I believe Jesus is God. He knows the answers. I'm presenting them. So when Jesus talks about these things in particular, let him talk. Yeah,
right? Yeah, really.
You might not like it, but that's the worldview I'm presenting.
Yeah.
The
Plus,
person.
You're a Christian, right? He's our source of authority.
Heaven forbid the Christian talks about Jesus. And so we have this kind of main example that he brings up about a friend wanting Greg's Kokel's opinion on the safest way to answer the question, what do you think about same-sex marriage?
Yeah, apparently his daughter, the friend's daughter, was going to have to maybe answer a question or give a presentation or something like that, right? Yeah.
So he suggested this. What a friend we have with Jesus, and so how can we answer this kind of odd question in this day and age when you're supposed to be very PC and you're just supposed to let everyone do what's right in their own eyes, and if as long as it's not hurting you, then it shouldn't affect you. Yeah. So how do we present the truth of what Jesus says with what's faux pas out in the world? Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we are Christians, and so we should present what Jesus says. Yeah. And so he says that the response that he thinks satisfies both requirements is to say, since I'm a follower of Christ, my view on marriage is the same as Jesus and his view. One he made clear in Matthew 19. I'll sum it up this way. Jesus' view was one man, one woman, becoming one flesh for one lifetime. So on the definition of marriage, I stand with Jesus. Now there's more that you can unpack about what constitutes proper divorce or abuse and all the things that go around it. But essentially, Jesus does speak on this. Yeah, and, no matter what people like Matthew Vine and other people that try and say, Christianity makes allowances for monogamous homosexual relationships, that just doesn't seem to be the case from Jesus' point of view. Right. So you either have to say that Jesus doesn't know what he's talking about. He never, in his being fully God and fully man, he never envisioned what a monogamous homosexual relationship was. He never knew what the year 2010 or 2020 or 2099 looked like. And so you have to then disagree with Jesus. And so depending on who you're talking to, this is definitely a formidable response.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so one man, one woman for one flesh for one lifetime, right? That's what Jesus held to in Matthew 18. So that's what marriage was for Jesus. And so, there we have an answer, and it's not our answer. This is what Jesus says. So if you have a problem with it, you need to fight with him. Right?
So Jesus' comments in Matthew 19 here may also be help you with a similar appeal to Jesus' authority. Well, Jesus never said anything about homosexuality.
Yeah, he never said anything about that.
He doesn't specifically say, now, concerning homosexuality, this is what I decree.
Right.
Notice this is an attempt to use the "what a friend we have in Jesus" tactic against the Christian.
Ooh, okay,
Jesus never said this, so you
yeah.
can never talk about this because he never said anything.
Right. So he has a friend in Jesus, right? In terms of Jesus never said it there. Right. Jesus is my friend.
Right. So if Jesus didn't specifically condemn homosexuality or same-sex marriage or gender dysmorphia, how can Christians condemn it? That's the thinking. That's the response.
Right.
So what can we properly conclude from the record's apparent silence about Jesus viewing homosexuality?
The argument from silence, right?
Well, the answer is simple. What can we conclude? Nothing. Right. Not much. Now, there are better arguments for silence, and why doesn't Jesus talk about the use of tanks during World War II? Okay, you got me there.
Yeah.
And so there are three issues at play here, and he says the first is that there's a difference between the record being silent about Jesus' opinion on something and Jesus being silent about it. Mm-hmm. And we have to remember what kind of the Gospel of John tells us. Jesus said a lot of things that aren't recorded in the Gospels,
right.
But John recorded the things so that we may believe. So it's offering us a way to know things. He's providing.
So there was a purpose for why they gave us what the Gospels, each Gospel, why they gave us what they gave us. Right. And John specifically spells out his purpose. Right.
Maybe he did tell John, there's going to be this time during the 1940s where tanks will be used.
Yeah.
So
we just didn't hear about that.
Yeah. The hidden mysteries of Jesus on the History Channel, if the History Channel does any history anymore. So that's the first one. The second is the apparent silent significance. And think about it. The record is also silent on Jesus' view of slavery, capital punishment, spousal abuse, sex trafficking, racism, child abuse, gay bashing, to name a few.
Oh, so he's silent on these. I guess it's okay to do those, right?
And we hear about this one a lot when we talk about abortion.
Yeah.
Oh, why is Christians against it? Jesus never talked about abortion.
Right. Jesus never talked about. Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
Child abuse. So
Jesus would be completely fine with child abuse and child murder. That's the inference.
Spousal abuse, of course. He never talked about that. So
that's what submission means. That's what I take it out of context to mean. So do we infer from the silence that he approves of these things? Well, hardly, right? Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, the Bible isn't a set of rules come down from on high on golden plates, and they tell us, input this action, output this response. It's not like that. It's presenting ideas and forms and different general principles that we apply, and that's what the New Testament authors do with the Old Testament. That's what New Testament authors do with themselves. That's what the church fathers did with early church fathers did with the Bible. So that's the response to it. Just because Jesus is silent doesn't mean that we don't have general principles that we can also apply to it.
Right. Good. Yeah.
And so the kind of the third part here is it's difficult to conclude anything about what Jesus did not condemn, right? But sometimes we can infer Jesus' view on something we have no record of by listening carefully to his view on a related thing he did weigh in.
Right, so we can make an inference based on what he said about those specific things.
Right. Yeah. Jesus in Matthew 19 says, have you not read? He that made them in the beginning made them male and female. He's talking about marriage. He's talking about the normal operation, the natural way that God created human beings to interact with each other, and on what basis. And yes, there were perversions to it. There were people that we deem as patriarchs and good godly people, and they went off and had more concubines than you could shake a stick at. Right. And so there's the operational, but there's also the ideology that surrounds that. And so Jesus does actually speak about it because he limits the scope of what marriage is. Mm-hmm. Why didn't Jesus say, well, one man and one woman and another one and another one and a dog and then a tree? Yeah. It's because he does limit it. He has spoken about this. He doesn't specifically say in kind of this Western context, and that's how we kind of view things. Is we need a list. We need a list of provisions, and we need a list of negations. So that's what we want as a Western thinking reader. We want them to say, Thomas exclaims, "My Lord and my God." And what I mean by that is you are ontologically the same as the Father and the Spirit. Right. And so you want Thomas to expand on this, but it's like, well, I'm sorry. That's
not the way it works.
Right? You're not getting that. I'm sorry. It'd be nice, but no one had video cameras back then. We don't have people signing copies and sending them out and stuff like that. So here, considering Matthew 19, it turns out Jesus had strong convictions about sexual subjects. According to him, the only kind of sexuality, one flesh, that's proper is sex between man and woman in a lifelong, committed marital relationships with each other. So, what does Jesus view on online pornography? Well, he does talk about that in the sense that he made specific statements about what a proper relationship with sex and a person is. Mm-hmm. So we get that from Matthew 19. Conversely, all forms of sex explicitly prohibited in the Bible, adultery, fornication, homosexuality, bestialities, and are each automatically disqualified by Jesus' reasoning. His one simple principle rules them all out. So that's what we're saying. So he makes a positive statement, and from there we inference what's out as well.
Wow, what a friend we have in Jesus.
It's almost the Christian thing to do. And so it appears that Jesus has a lot to say indirectly about the issue of homosexuality and same-sex marriage and gender dysmorphia and all those various hot-button issues, giving puberty blockers to children, what have you, whatever the next hot-button issue is. The Bible does talk about it, and we just have to do the hard work. So take advantage of any opportunity you have to get Jesus on your side. Let him do the arguing for you. Yeah. You're a Christian.
Right.
Use it.
Right.
People may not like it. People say, well, I don't care what your magic sky fairy says, but it's part of your worldview that you're presenting as an answer. Yeah. So, if they're like, oh, that's just mythological tales. Well, that's just your opinion. I don't really agree with that. I mean, we can just go back and forth if we're just going to, cut everyone's knees out from what their worldview is right. allowing them to argue from. And so you may have to set this up in advance by asking, what's your opinion on Jesus, right? Figure out where that person's coming from, and you get a whole range of issues like he's a great teacher, he's an important prophet, he's this guru, he's this archetype of the perfect man of who we're supposed to be, that Jordan Peterson type deal. He's a Christ of some sort, but not the Christ. So you figure out where they view Jesus.
So if they have a positive image of Jesus and in terms of him being authoritative and that sort of thing, all right, now you can go with what a friend we have in Jesus, right. because they've kind of legitimized who Jesus is and what he's done and what he stands for. Right. And so now you can use this one, and it's pretty tough for them to back out of it.
Right. and too, we talk about this as a type of evidence. Is authority a type of evidence? Yes, if it's a proper authority. Right. And so if Jesus is the one that creates those things and implemented the idea of marriage and what that is, isn't it proper to bring up who we agree that started the whole thing? Right. Yeah. That's a way. And so I think too with liberal Christians, if you're on the other side, figuring out where they stand on Jesus is kind of sadly a thing to do now. Well, he's fine, but we read other gurus and stuff like that. So we just don't want to pigeonhole everyone, and not everyone can find the way, the truth, and the life.
So this is a good one. What a friend we have in Jesus, right? It allows us now to speak to these issues, and the person now has to interact with Christ. Actually, so it's good because we have an authoritative voice in Jesus, and it's pretty difficult for them to refute or at least go against that, especially if they initially think that Jesus is a guru or a good teacher, right. and that sort of thing. But it's good because it can get us into the scriptures, right? Yeah. Let's see what Jesus said about that, right?
And I think it's important too, especially if they come at you with, well, Jesus never said those things. Oh, we care about what Jesus says now. Yeah. Well, let's go. Exactly. Let's see what Jesus has to say about things. Yeah. And so they either have to back out and say, I was just using your, worldview against you. That doesn't seem to have worked for you. Or, I care what Jesus says because I think he's a good teacher. Well, if you think he's so good, don't you view some benefit of having a monogamous one man, one woman for life?
Yeah, that's because that's what Jesus said.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.